All right. Good evening, everyone. Starting to get a few people popping on. Do me a favor and maybe post something quick in the comments. Let me know that you're here. It is Friday night, so this is a little bit of an experiment with. I figured Friday night probably not typically a good night to do a live broadcast, but at the same point, with everybody on stay-at-home orders, I figured we might as well give it a shot. So we'll see how many people we get showing up to view with us tonight. Hello, Davida. Beautiful day in Colorado. It's supposed to be warmer after our couple of days of snow this week. It was a welcome sunshiny day. Well, with it being Friday night, I put a little comment on that said it would be appropriate if we were going to have a glass of red wine. So I have mine, and it's a Dry Farms wine, red wine that's the ultra low sugar. Actually has great flavor to it. So if we're going to drink wine, we're going to try to on my end, we're going to try to keep the low sugar version. It wouldn't be very good of me to do that and then get into our PowerPoint on nutrition and inflammation and drink high sugar things. All right, get a few more people on here. We'll get started in just a moment. Good evening, Maxie. All right, guys. Well, with it being a stay-at-home Friday night for everybody, I'm glad that you decided to spend a little time at least learning and plugging into some things that I think will be helpful for everybody. I want to start off tonight talking a little bit about the current kind of the current climate with the pandemic and all that kind of stuff as we kind of dive into, and it's going to tie in with our nutrition inflammation portion. So one of the things that I think is so important for people, and we've mentioned it previously in our previous episodes about, you know, what are we learning from the pandemic, and that's ultimately that the people that have health challenges, that have things that are pre-existing. Good evening, Leslie. That those are the people that are struggling. Now, I've had some people, point out to me that, hey, there's been a couple of younger people that have that were, considered to be healthy people that have, gone down the bad road and unfortunately has succumbed to the pandemic. But at the same point, those numbers are low, and I still, the definition of what's healthy for somebody is different. Unfortunately, and I don't know any of these individuals personally, but the questions that I would have would be, what's were they eating well? Were their bodies healthy? Were their immune systems functioning well? Unfortunately, with vaping and this, and this types of stuff going on, and some college students and it's spring break, and maybe they haven't been making the best decisions. I know for a fact that when I was in college, at that point in my life, that I often didn't make the very best decisions when it came to food choices or beverage consumption, any of that kind of stuff. I don't think I'm alone there. Maybe I am. But hello, Mom. But ultimately, I really feel like it's important for us to ask those questions because somebody isn't diagnosed, that's one thing. But there's a lot of people that unfortunately are walking around, maybe diabetic, and they don't know because it hasn't gotten bad enough that their blood sugar is to a point where it causes symptoms, or somebody walking around with high blood pressure and they don't know. So those things it's not that they're not important. But I just, those are always my questions that I have when it comes to those situations. And so the inspiration for the Strong People Are Harder to Kill came from this, just from the standpoint of I still believe in all of the research and the data and everything that's coming out does support that if you're a strong person, that you have good health, you don't have comorbidities, all of those things. Ultimately, for some people, they get no symptoms whatsoever. Other people get a mild cold, a cough, sore throat, a little fever for a little bit, or something along those lines. But for the most part, it's something that every one of us has been through before. Now, just to kind of give some updates on things, there's more and more information coming out now that we're starting to get some like some serum antibody tests and stuff like that going that are showing that there's actually more people having immunity to this than what they were initially expecting, which points to the fact that maybe this didn't come here in the time frames that they really talked about. We've talked a little bit about, a lot of people were sick. I know here in Colorado, in that, basically from about November all the way through January, February, and there seemed to be a pretty significant one that was hitting in January here, where a lot of people kind of had a pretty bad upper respiratory infection. And they, everybody was okay. Some people, of course, if they had other health challenges, may have had to go to the hospital. But ultimately, the question is has this been around a lot longer than what we were aware of? And so tonight, as we start to look into this deeper on what is it, so they're coming to the conclusion that some of the treatment stuff that was happening, like I pointed out in our last episode, there's nothing that's been studied and proven, right? So it's too new of a thing, so we haven't had time to do studies and to really figure things out. So they're trying things, so they can look at past instances of similar coronaviruses or similar things and say, well, hey, this seemed to work here. Let's test it, see what happens. And there's been a lot of testing going on currently while we're going through this, and which is the way that we're going to discover, effective ways of dealing with it from that standpoint. So when it comes to the ventilators and all of those things that they were talking about, there's a large portion of people that are starting to question, was the ventilators actually doing more harm than good for these patients? They thought it was the right thing to do based off of previous information and stuff coming from other countries that have dealt with it. But ultimately, the fatality rate's very high when people were going on the ventilators. And the new information is coming out, talks more about some of the stuff we're going to talk about tonight, which is maybe it's an uncontrolled cytokine storm that's damaging the lung tissue. There's been talk of the inability for the body, the red blood cells, to carry oxygen properly. And so by intubating and putting people on ventilators, the problem isn't that they're not getting enough oxygen in, it's just the body's inability to utilize it. So there's new things coming out. They're doing some plasma and some blood transfusions with people that have healthy red blood cells, and they're doing a lot of things right now to try to see, especially for those people in critical situations, what can they do to try to help them through this. So lots of moving parts and lots of new updates every day. Our focus and our goal is really to try to educate people on how do I stay strong all the time so that I don't have the risk or the incidence of having bad outcomes with it. That's really my focus. It's the focus for our office, is just to try to help inform our patients, give them the knowledge so that they can make better decisions for themselves. Because ultimately, if you can do that, if you can make the right decisions, then you are bulletproofing yourself. You are doing the things that says, hey, not that I'm going around again. I talked earlier. I'm not, going around and licking door handles and handrails and stuff like that to purposely try to expose myself to anything. But ultimately, doing the things that I can do and the things that I can control to keep my body healthy and strong. So, want to jump into the PowerPoint, and I actually think that I have a shot of doing this the right way tonight. So, we shall see. Oops, maybe not. Present online from beginning. Okay, so COVID and inflammation is one of the things that we were just talking about. What they're really finding is that one of the most important factors in the outcomes for these people during the pandemic is the level of inflammation markers in their body. So they're finding that the people that have either passed or are in critical condition all seem to have extremely high levels of inflammation markers in the bodies. Now, I'm not going to bore you with all the interleukins and the cytokines and all of those stuff to name them all specifically, because there's lots of them. But the bottom line is they're noticing that people that get it and recover versus people that get it and don't recover, major difference in these levels of cytokines and chemokines. And these are things that are normal for the body. So it's important for people to understand that whenever we have an injury, we get an infection or something like that, the body's response and what the cytokines and these markers are used for is to make the body aware chemically that there's something going on here and we need to bring reinforcements to the area. So when the cells pick up on a new virus or a bacteria or something like that, it would be a completely normal response for the body to release these inflammatory markers in that area, because it's part of the response, it's part of the immune system, and it's a very normal thing. And especially when we talk about inflammation, acute inflammation is typically always the right decision for the body. Meaning, if you sprained your ankle, I would expect it to inflame. There's actually a tremendous amount of research in the injury world that is more conservative on using ice and all of the things, the rice therapy, all the stuff that we used to learn, because they found that if they were being too aggressive and not letting that inflammation response actually have a place in the body, that the healing mechanisms were actually not as good. So who knew that the body knew what it was doing when it got injured? And so hopefully you can start to see that, again, acute situations, these are normal. But what we're dealing with in many of these people is that they're coming into the battle with chronic inflammation problems. And chronic inflammation is really the root of all, when you look at this, all the comorbidity diseases, so heart disease, cancer, diabetes, all of these things, they all have a root within a chronic inflammation pattern in the body. And so if the body is already in a weakened state, that the body is trying to heal and function and is chronically inflamed to try to repair and to make up for these damaged areas, ultimately, when you get something new that came along, a couple things could happen. The body identifies the invader, it sends out its normal reinforcements, but maybe the reinforcements don't come because they've unfortunately been being utilized a little bit too heavily in previous situations. And so as a result of that, now we're dealing with the guy that's sounding the horn sounds that more and more and more, and then we can develop and eventually get into the cytokine storms. So again, cytokine storms are normal within reason. So when there's an invader injury, that's normal for the body to release these cytokines as a result of the infection or the injury. They're normal. They're very useful for the body because that's how it's going to overcome things. But if it's left unchecked, or if the body's already in a weakened state, and if I'm sounding the alarm and the reinforcements aren't coming, does it make sense that you would get excited and you would probably try to sound your alarm louder and louder to really get somebody's attention? Like, is somebody not paying attention? Is that the problem here? And that rush or that increase in intensity there can really ramp up this cytokine storm. And when it goes unchecked like that, it actually starts to damage the body. So the body doesn't want to do this. Remember, we talked about in our last episode that the body doesn't have a vendetta against you. So it didn't wake up in the morning and say, I'm going to see what I can do to torture me today. But it simply had this severe over response to this problem because the troops weren't coming, the reinforcements weren't coming the way they were supposed to. And as a result of that, it creates a big challenge for the body's immune system. And the immune system knows it's a threat. So it's not like it was a false alarm. It's saying, no, this isn't an imminent threat. We've got to keep this in check. We've got to do what's necessary to defeat this enemy. And we can't do it. We're not getting what we need. So that leads to these cytokine storms that you probably, if you're listening, if you've been watching the news, which hopefully not too much of that, but they're talking a lot about this new kind of theory or thought process in that these cytokine storms are actually the things that are damaging some of the lung tissues and the alveolar areas that are not making it to where oxygen can get through and bind properly. And so this is why people are losing oxygenation. So we need to have a cytokine response. And it's even okay for there to be a cytokine storm if it's an aggressive bacteria or virus. But it still has to have a checks and balances system into it so that we don't allow for things to get out of control one way or another. Because if it underreacts, the virus or the bacteria could win. If it overreacts too much, then now we can create damage. It's almost like I had to drop a big bomb in there to wipe them out, but as a result, I had a lot of collateral damage from dropping the big bomb. So I hope that makes sense for you. So tonight our focus is really, we're moved from inflammation into nutrition and see how those two play a role in this. So my question is, does nutrition play a role? So I've got a couple of pictures here for you guys, and I really feel like, unfortunately, if we looked at the average American, we're eating too much food in the top picture, not enough food in the bottom picture. Now, I will say that I feel like not only these times, like, when we try to look at what's coming good or what's coming out of this pandemic that's good, people are eating at home more. They're controlling what they're putting in their food. And some people are saying, hey, I'm actually noticing some differences. I get comments like that from friends and family that, hey, now that I'm not eating out quite as much, or I'm controlling better what I'm eating, I'm actually noticing some positive changes there. And so the bottom picture here, lots of good things in it. I don't think, people have made fun of eating healthy, and they call it bland, or they call it, you're eating cardboard and all these different things. And that's really not true. In today's day, we know the truth, and, grapefruit and salmon, blueberries, and all of these things that are just very tasty, very high in vitamin density, because that's really what we're after. So interestingly enough, talking about this, in 1973 in the American Journal of Clinical Nutrition, they actually reported that one glass of orange juice decreased immune function by 50% for up to 5 hours. Now, this is something, because this is top of mind right now, because everybody's aware that vitamin C is good for our immune system. And so there's been a lot. I know that we can't even keep vitamin C in stock at our office right now, with everybody wanting to get their hands on vitamin C. And now the nutrition companies who weren't quite prepared like most people for, needing to sell millions of bottles of vitamin C or all on back order and all that kind of stuff. So if we drank a glass of orange juice, we're thinking, hey, this is good. It's orange juice. It's even if it's, pure, it's not, concentrate, or it's not, whatever else stuff they put in, it's 100% pure orange juice. I think I'm getting vitamin C. I'm getting all these great nutrients. And I'm not saying that you're not getting some nutrients, so that's good. But the sugar that's in that, especially when there's no fiber, or the things that, when fruit was put on this earth, it had fiber in it. It had things in it that actually would slow down metabolism. So that way we would not get such a blood sugar spike. But when we juice, particularly a lot of fruits, then we can get into trouble with the sugar content in those. And so, interestingly, that same comparison of the glass of orange juice was the same as drinking soda. So when they looked at that, they drank a liter of soda, and they found the same type of results from that. So it's kind of interesting that from an immune function standpoint, whether I was drinking orange juice or a Coke or a Pepsi or whatever, I'm going to get kind of the same type of immune response to that. That's kind of scary. And so the list of vitamins and minerals needed for healthy physiology is endless, and therefore eating a well-balanced diet is the best way to accomplish this. We could have done a 3-hour nutrition thing and could have went through biochemical pathways tonight on how everything works and why it works. I didn't think anybody was really into that, especially on a Friday night. The best way to do it, and something that we've taught in our office for the entire 20 years I've been in practice, is that nothing replaces nutrition, like supplementation, better than food. So the problem is you have to be realistic with yourself and say, am I eating a well-balanced, healthy diet? Am I eating the foods in the picture below as the mainstay of my diet? Or am I kind of dipping into that top picture a little bit more than I should? Because although it is true, it's not always easy. They've actually found that even when we're doing a lot of the right things and eating a lot of the right foods, quite frankly, a lot of the foods are not as nutrient dense as they used to be, and therefore you could still come up with some shortages. So do the best job you can. Be honest with yourself to say, am I doing good? Am I getting those groups of foods that are supporting not just my immune function, but my overall body and health? Because remember, these are the raw materials that you're using. If you're a young person and still growing, these are the things that you're building tissue out of to grow and to get stronger. And I think most people, if you ask them physiologically, would they rather be building tissue out of salmon and blueberries and avocados and healthy foods, or burgers, fries, and chicken fingers, everybody would say the first one, even though that's not the case. I mean, if you look at any kids menu in a restaurant, you can't find something healthy in most places. It's always some type of grilled cheese or fried food of some sort. And this is what these kids are building their bodies from. And so now we have these, at least like when I was young, we ate at home and we ate food from scratch, and although it wasn't always perfectly healthy and all that stuff, we still controlled things, and things were not as processed back then. Now in today's world, I mean, for some kids, as soon as they come out of the womb, they're on synthetic formulas, and their artificial food life started from day one. And so in those cases, we have to be aware that we've got to be doing good things and potentially supplementing our nutrition if we're not going to get it the way that we're supposed to. So, question for you, does your supplement separator look like this picture? One of the other things that I get the joy of doing with patients over time is I get to sit down with them, and we actually go through their supplements, and we try to weed them out or bring them down, meaning we're trying to get less supplements because they're taking 218 things, and they forget half the time what they were even taking this one for or whatever. And so we're going to talk a little bit tonight about the supplements. We're going to talk a little bit about how these things impact our health. And then we're also going to talk about how we can kind of just get overkill, because there gets to be a point where if you have specific issues that you're dealing with, then maybe you have to do more of these things. But in general, I think a lot of people they're treating their supplements almost like the medical model or a drug model that says, well, rather than doing the right thing, nutrition or exercise or getting adjusted, whatever it is, I'll take a supplement to try to do that for me. So it's still the same model. Like in the medical model, we have a problem that gets diagnosed through some type of a test, and then we go there and we get a medication, maybe we get a surgery or something along those lines to quote unquote fix it. So that's not getting to the cause of the problem necessarily. Now, there are causes of problems of nutrition deficiencies, and so for those, it's very important that if we're not going to get them through the food, that we're getting through supplements. But I just warn people, because I feel like many people, these people that come in that bring me 20, 30, 40 supplements, that's kind of how they're living their life. And yes, it's better than doing medication if they could be avoiding medication by doing those things. But it's really more about changing the mindset. So why am I doing this? Why am I taking this? Well, I'm taking it in the short term, maybe to try to help overcome something, but I'm going to fix it in the long term by trying to get to the cause. And so many nutrients that we have are essential, meaning our body has to bring them in. And then we also have some that our body can manufacture. And so those essential nutrients, we need to be getting them into our bodies. We need to be able to take those on a regular basis so that our body has the natural resources that it would need to heal and function normally. And that comes to the chronic inflammation things and all of that kind of stuff. Because, on our previous slide, that those burgers and fries and pizza and all of those things, hey, listen, like most people, and those things taste pretty good, but I know the long-term consequences of those. And that's what allows me to try to make better decisions, because it's like, okay, well, yes, that tastes good. However, here's the long-term negative effect of that. And when we start looking at things a little bit differently like that, sometimes it can help you, because I don't think anybody has, quote unquote, the willpower all the time to be able to resist all things. But those are the things that you can do to definitely help you. So, I just talked about this. Although I'm a big fan of taking supplements before having to take a medication, it's important to know that we need to identify causes that rather than treat the symptoms and deficiencies. We know that there are core supplements that are pretty much a necessity for most people. So I get a lot of questions like that at my office, and just saying, "Hey, Dr. Tim, what are the things that I should do?" And quite frankly, I think everybody should be on a multivitamin. If you get a good, high quality food-based multivitamin, I'm not here to cut on any specific ones, but a lot of times the things that we're getting in the typical stores and stuff like that, they're synthetic nutrients. You look at the backs of them, and all you see is a bunch of chemical names. You don't see an ingredients list. You should always look at your supplements, and if there's not an ingredients list that at least has something that you can recognize on it, then probably it's not a great supplement for you to take. And so taking a good foundational supplement as a multivitamin is very important, because it's really going to help navigate some of those little gaps that maybe you're unaware of. Maybe you're just, you're not getting enough iodine or enough selenium or enough this in your normal diet. And it just kind of helps fill in those gaps for us. The next one that I really feel is foundational, which is what we'll also be talking a little bit more about it in a minute, is vitamin D. Vitamin D is a supplement that is actually more of a pro-hormone or hormone in our body than a true just pure vitamin. But it is so crucial in so many different physiological processes in the body. And unfortunately, we're very deficient across the country. They've actually raised up the numbers a little bit in the medical world. We still feel that it should be much higher than that. But there's an imaginary line basically around northern Arizona, and they say that in the northern hemisphere, if we live above that latitude, that we probably are vitamin D deficient. And so that's me, and we're in Colorado. We get a lot of sunshine here, so maybe during the summer months, if you're doing a really good job of getting outside, you're going to get plenty. In the winter months in particular, they've shown that even with just the sun at the angle that it is, it doesn't really give us great exposure to the UV that we need to help our body make vitamin D. And so from a maintenance standpoint, I'm a big fan of people taking about 5,000 IUs of vitamin D3. The ones that we do have at our office have probiotics and then other things that help increase absorption of it, which I think is important too. They've definitely studied the differences between taking just it by itself and then it within a complex or with other co-factors that help your body absorb and utilize it better. But the honest truth is you should get it tested. This is something that's easily tested. Most labs do it. They're not expensive to get that. So even if you're going into your yearly exam, you're getting your blood work done, do yourself a favor, ask your doctor for a vitamin D test. These are great to see where your numbers are at. Like I said, they've raised the number up to 30 in the medical. They want you to be around 30. What we're really shooting for is people to be above 60. Between 60 and 80 seems to be a really good spot to help your body. Tons and tons of studies. Again, I could bore you for the next 3 hours on vitamin D studies that just show how effective it is at helping to prevent illness. It can help with the fighting process too, but really it's where a lot of the strength comes and it's about keeping the person from getting sick and being able to do things. Just one quick study. I know it was done, I can't remember the year now, but they actually took a large group of people and they gave them, I think it was 25,000 IUs during the cold and flu season. And nobody in the group got sick with the cold and flu. And so it doesn't mean you can't get sick with it. And again, we're not saying that if we just took vitamin D, then all of a sudden I can't get coronavirus. There's no claims like that, but there's evidence and there's things to support that it helps to maximize the efficiency in the immune system. And then the last one is typically going to be some kind of an omega-3 oil because most people, again, are out of balance really bad with that omega-6, omega-3 ratio. So trying to help people understand that. If you eat a lot of fish, salmon, the cold water fish in particular, you're going to have better omega-3 sources from there, or sardines if you're a sardine eater. The little fish, those will have higher levels. But if you're not doing that, then again, don't kid yourself and say, no, I'm fine. I had fish 6 months ago, so I think I'm okay. You're probably not. You're getting way too many omega-6s in your normal diet, and therefore you're going to have imbalances, which leads to inflammation. And then we go down what we talked about at the beginning, this chronic inflammation pathway. So vitamin minerals. So vitamin D3, like we talked about, is an important supplement. We talked about those levels. There's a lot of evidence that shows during a cold and flu season, if you're trying to be vigilant and try to help yourself, you really want to maybe bump that up to 10. Some really say even up to 15,000 IUs on a daily basis during that time. Again, measuring your blood levels. If we're in that 60 to 80 range and you maintain that with 5,000 IUs, then that's what you need to take. That's one of the reasons why I really recommend people testing it. Vitamin C is best taken as a complex rather than just as plain ascorbic acid. Complexes will always be a better version of a vitamin for you because it's got cofactors, it's got the other things that are in vitamin C with it. Ascorbic acid by itself, it's not that it's a horrible thing. There's plenty of studies that they just study ascorbic acid because it's when you kind of get that molecule, you can definitely control exactly what's in it. So that's where a lot of the studies come from. But they actually show that that vitamin C does play a significant role with helping us in these immune times. You guys may have been reading and hearing about them doing IV vitamin C treatments at some of the hospitals to try to help because they're finding that it could potentially help with that cytokine storm, those people that are overreacting. So doing good things. So 1 gram is kind of the minimum if you were going to be supplementing that. You can go up to 3 to 5 grams a day. Vitamin C will trigger diarrhea, so that's why we have the bowel tolerance on there. If you're taking too much, it can definitely do that. So you want to make sure that you're obviously monitoring that because we don't want to put you into gastrointestinal distress all the time. Vitamin A is very important as well with strong immune function. But this is one that we do have to be a little bit careful about supplementing because we can get too much of it. The best is to get it through our foods. You get a lot of vitamin A with our dark leafy vegetables and through a lot of the meat products and poultry and stuff like that. Really, the strict vegans of the world would be the people that would be most likely to maybe have a vitamin A challenge because they maybe aren't eating because of the food choices they're making, they're not eating quite as dense in the vitamin A. Again, it's okay. Again, there's a lot of information out there about people taking short times of high doses, and that's for a lot of these. Like if vitamin A, if you were going to take high doses because you wanted to spike immune system, it would be fine in the short term, not a good idea in the long term. Zinc is another one of those. Zinc can be supplemented short term without much concern, but long term, high levels are associated with some toxicity issues. Typically, you're going to be between 10 and kind of the cap is about 40 milligrams a day. Again, if you're under a doctor's order to take more than that, I'm giving you guys kind of the general rules because I don't want somebody going out taking 300 milligrams of zinc every day and then ending up with a problem. So, if you're under care, you have specific questions. If you're one of our patients and you have a question with that, we're always happy to answer and sit down with you and really kind of customize it to what's best for you. But we want to make sure that we're paying attention to that. And then the last one, which is one that a lot of people are not quite as aware of as being important, is iodine. It's another essential nutrient, that we typically didn't have back in the old days, we had goiters and stuff that were iodine deficiencies that people were forming. That's why they started iodizing salt, so that we were making sure that we're getting iodine into people's diets on a regular basis. Now there's a lot of moving away from salt, which whole nother topic. It's not necessary in most people, especially if you're doing more of the natural salts, the Himalayan sea salt and the Celtic sea salt, that kind of stuff. But about 1,000 micrograms a day will help the body stay strong with that as well. So here's some core things that you guys can be looking into to try to help yourself. Again, just keep my body strong during this time, because if by chance I were to get exposed to something, I just know that my body will have the best shot to overcome it. All right, we're gonna got our upcoming stuff going on tonight. I've got a few more things for you guys, but we're doing the one tonight, the Feeling a Strong Body. Tomorrow morning, we're doing a 10 a.m. Building a Physically Strong Body. I put on there PJs and coffee are okay. If a glass of wine is okay tonight on a Friday night, we'll allow PJs and coffee. With your coffee, just make sure that it's maybe coffee with just a little half and half or some heavy cream, something like that. Let's not go full caramel macchiato-ish on us, because that's your 3 days worth of sugar in 1 cup. And then we're going to wrap up this series on Monday night at 7 p.m. And that's going to be how to detox or avoid toxins for your family. And again, made a little reference earlier on an earlier episode that when we started talking about the terrain theory through the germ theory, the toxins were really some of the things that the terrain theory guys were very particular about, because they noticed that the toxins weakened the cell structure, which allowed them to become more of a host for the disease or infection. So those are kind of our upcoming things here. And all right. Okay, so switch back to here. Now, I want to get wrapped up for you guys so that we're being good with everybody time-wise. But I just wanted to wrap up by just talking about making the right choices. We talked, when we were talking about the mindset, about the easy, hard, easy theory. It's not always easy to eat healthy. Actually, it can be challenging at times, but it's those harder decisions, those tougher things that we're deciding to do that are going to give us huge dividends and rewards when it comes to our body. If we make all the easy things, going to the grocery store and seeing all of the processed food aisles just completely wiped out, but yet there's just a huge amount of produce there and fresh food and all that kind of stuff. And, you walk in there and for me, it makes me sad, because I'm thinking to myself, man, we have this pandemic going on. We have this fear that's, raising everybody's cortisol, and they're mentally just challenged, and they're weakening their immune systems. And then they come to the store, they're frantic, they're buying all kinds of things that they shouldn't be buying. And people say, well, yeah, but you need stuff that can last. I don't think anybody really thought we were on the threat of a complete lockdown, like you can't leave your house for a month or anything like that. So it was just that kind of that craziness and that helter-skelter ability that really drove people to not only to the brink of fights in parking lots and stealing toilet paper. And I saw the other day a fight in a Walmart or something over baby formula from a while back. And so there's just so much kind of craziness going on. and then as a result, people just make bad decisions. They stop moving. I will be 100% transparent and just say, it's been much more challenging for me not having my CrossFit gym to go to 5 days a week, to be able to motivate myself. It's like I just have a routine. It's just what I do. And now my routine's broken. So I have to be very intentional about doing those things. And it's the same for everybody. Everybody has these challenges. And so I just want to encourage you guys to say, there's still a lot of fresh fruit out there. Eat the fresh food, get the fresh produce and meats and stuff like that. Let's really be focused on this, because we're just trying to build strong bodies. If your body is strong, then your fear level can go way down, because you don't have to be fearful of the virus. If I was to get the virus, my body will defeat the virus. If I'm doing the right things on a consistent basis, that's going to be the outcome. So I just want to encourage you guys tonight to stay that course, do the good stuff. And I look forward to seeing everybody on tomorrow morning. We'll be on at 10 a.m. So please come. I won't have my PJs on because I'm the only one that's on camera that you guys can see. But I will. I'll be here, and I'm looking forward to just teaching you some of the really crucial things about fitness, about movement, about the things and how that sedentary lifestyle, what it does to us physiologically. So I didn't see any other significant questions tonight. So if anybody has a quick question you want to post it on there, you can. If not, I look forward to seeing everybody tomorrow morning. Thank you, Perry. All right, guys. Have a great night.